Good morning, good evening, good night, and welcome to AfCFTA Files, a show that is done by the African MSC Collective. The African MSC Collective is really a support system for MSMEs that provides the right inputs, the right impact, the right community, conversation, and capacity to help MSMEs start, set up, scale, stabilize, and build sustainably successful businesses. Why is sustainably successful important? Because on the African continent and indeed across the globe, 75% of all businesses die in the first 5 years. That's global statistics. And it's bothersome because it's usually around skill sets and access that makes businesses shut down. That said, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is what we call AfTA, is really a place that can help businesses grow. So we at AMC decided to begin to unpack things in portion sizes that anybody can understand, apply, and then come back and tell us working, not working. There are very many accelerators, there are very many programs, so we will not really design another one. What we're looking at is to help businesses implement what they have learned, what they're hearing. That's what we do. So this particular show is grounded on the fact that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, to most of us, feels like this big amorphous thing, this huge thing in the sky, this tall skyscraper that we don't get, that we don't understand, and it sounds like a government project. But the reality of it, and we'll go through some foundations about it, we like to repeat the foundations about it, and then work on the mindset of the entrepreneur. So my name is Kyesubire Greigg, and I'll be your host and leading this conversation. Don't worry, we'll make it simple, we'll make it sweet, and we'll ensure that you understand where we're going. Okay, so let's start this conversation. So the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is the largest free trade bloc in the world. Largest, please read that. It connects 1.3 billion plus people, okay? Because we are giving birth every day. We're growing as a continent every day. But on average, 1.3 billion people in 55 countries with a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollars. Let's let that sit there a little bit. So it was put forward in the 18th session of the Africa Union meeting in 2012 in Ethiopia, signed by 44 presidents in 2018. Currently, 54 nations have signed it, 47 have ratified it, which means they have put together their instruments of trade. And it came into effect in 2019, and the first set of trading happened in 2021. It takes time. Trade agreements take time. So it's not like just starting a business and hitting the ground running. There are a lot of other things you have to put into place so that it can actually work. So from 2012 to 2021 was the groundwork being done. Now, some people keep asking me, why do you talk about this thing? Because of its ability. You see, when we put together the right structures and when we run the right businesses, AfCFT has the potential to lift 30 million of our people out of extreme poverty and another 68 million out of where they are because they live on less than $6 a day. Depending on where you come from, $6 a day means different things, but it isn't much. And if we're able to move our people to a place where they have steady, reliable income, it even shifts the political conversation. It shifts the way our children are leaving the continent and moving to the West and dying in the Mediterranean, okay? Struggling and dying in the desert in North Africa as a transit. But the other impact, it will boost continental impact by 450 billion. By 2035, it will increase our exports to 560 billion, and it will put money into the global economy. We have talked a lot about being independent, being able to control our way, being influential in the global space. This is how we can do it. Now, we need to be patient with AfCFTA, and I'll tell you why. The EU is in its 65th year. AfCFTA, the workings and the modalities and the designing began in 2012. So what we are currently in is the beginning of the trading, because remember, trading began in 2021. It's 2023, so 2024. So if we have not gotten to the place where we are all harnessing it, then we must be patient. Why? Not every nation is at the same place, but the potential of boosting income by $450 billion is big for us as a continent. AfCFTA is really about social and economic emancipation. Some of the principal objectives, not all of them because they're a very long list, is a single market, liberalized market, so we can trade between one another as we do. And also to provide us with a foundation for a customs union. A customs union just gives us greater economic collaborations, and we'll dive into that in another episode. I mentioned the improved socioeconomic development. It makes us more competitive because if we're going to export, we cannot be doing substandard, low quality stuff. So it allows us to expand who we are. It will also promote industrial development, which will mean we can export more finished products, which gives us a better price than exporting raw materials. And finally, it gives us a mechanism to resolve tariff disputes. So when you look at all these things it wants to do, it comes down to one thing: harmonizing the rules of trade. Can we trade one to another without too much trouble in between? Can we make room one to another without creating divisions in between? That's what AfCFTA seeks to do. Why is that important? Again, we go back to its capacity to give us income, 450 billion. That, I want you to remember that figure, 450 billion that we can actually do in terms of trade. Okay? Now, if you are in business, you must understand this. Government creates agreements, government creates opportunity, government creates economic climate. We as a private sector, we as the business people, test and work in those spaces and feed back to government. Now, I know many of us say our governments don't listen, but I believe they do. I believe in many instances, they may not immediately work or respond to the things we put out, but we must robustly test AfCFTA to give government feedback. And this is why. Nothing is done in a silo. The ministers meet, they discuss, they negotiate, they take positions that would be beneficial to their nations. So you will find that some nations are further ahead than others. You'll find some are absolutely reliant on one product. So if we can go back and say, this is working, this is not working, we need help here. However, let me add this one thing. We cannot individually influence our governments, but as a collective, we can. So if there's a group of us who are trading and we're finding the same problems and we're speaking the same language, then we form a collective and we speak about it. So that's why we must give feedback to our governments. A few facts: implementation really began in 2022 when we did the first trade under the Guided Trade Agreement. So the Guided Trade Agreement is really just a solution to test because the presidents ratified it, we did not trade. Export is a lot of work. So many of us didn't have the capacity to do it. In fact, MSMEs, we still don't have the capacity to do it on our own. So what happened is this AfCFTA Secretariat figured out a way to create opportunities for interested state parties to enable trade. So the GTI, or the Guided Trade Agreement, launched between 8 countries, and these 8 countries traded goods and they started the process. And what it helps them do is to identify loopholes, gaps, identify the policies needed, how the logistics work, just how to build the effective trading agreement. It's one thing to design the agreement. It's a completely different thing to see how it works, which is what the GTI was supposed to do. And it actually does, by matching businesses and products for export and import between interested state parties. But all the state parties had to have signed the agreement and ratified it and deposited their instruments of trade. It's actually effective. Now, to be able to take care of this level of trade, there is a way we must think. So your mindset is a set of beliefs that shape how you make sense of the world or how you interpret the world and everything around you. It's how you see yourself in reference to others. It's how you see others in reference to you. It's how you deal with people. And it heavily influences how you think, how you feel, how you behave, how hard you work. Because if I'm sitting here thinking, nothing will change after all, life is just going to continually get hard, I won't work. But if I'm sitting in a space where I know if I put in X effort over Y period, I will get Z outcome, then it will determine how I work. So your mindset is critical to whether or not you succeed, how much you succeed, what you pursue, because it's really grounded on your internal belief system. Now, when you're running a business in any locality, you have to have certain things. And the desire to export amplifies them, okay? So the mindset of an exporter, this is not everything. Trust me, there's a lot more you should have as an exporter. But these are the ones we felt were most critical. You must be a problem solver. You have gone into a community driven by curiosity on how they are and how they live, right? And identified that these people have this need or this situation is bothering them. That curiosity leads problem solving, right? But it passes through empathy. So it is not enough for me to be curious how people in Cote d'Ivoire live, okay? Or in Mauritania or in Niger. It's not enough to be curious. The curiosity must fuel a desire to go in and understand, figure out what's important to them, why, how did they get here, and then walk a mile in their shoes, which is where empathy comes. Businesses that solve real, repeatable problems in a way that their community needs it solved are the ones that then become stable. So when you've done that, you will definitely find hurdles. I can imagine going into a Francophone country. I don't speak French. I need an interpreter. Now, sometimes in your conversations, you may be misunderstood. Sometimes you will misunderstand. So you will think that they like the 300 ml bottle of soda, whereas they're used to a 450 bottle. So you bring one and they're like, no, too small. Which means at the point of curiosity and research, you are not as empathetic as you should have been. Because empathy will force you to walk a mile in their shoes, look at how they live and all that. So you must be resilient to go back once, twice, as well as be resilient enough to understand it's not working, okay? You must be growth-minded, which means you don't get bogged down by things that don't work. A growth-minded person understands that they do not know everything. There is space to expand their base of knowledge. There's space to become more. There's space to read more, study more, know more, do more, be more, okay? So when you're growth-minded, there is room. You're more elastic. And in the export sector, a lot more than in just the conventional business at home sector. In the export sector, you need that elasticity. And then you need to be collaborative. I promise you, we cannot do business unless we're working together. I promise you. I will need a forwarding agent, I will need somebody to transport my goods. I will need to trust, maybe have a partner on the other side. I will also need to know people who can refer me to people who can answer my questions. Unless I'm able to work with others, let me just stay in my country. I will need to be able to sit with people and understand what their culture is like, what it is about, and push into that place. So you have to be a lot more robust to be an exporter. You have to collaborate with your bank to get your line of credit, your insurance to get you right insurance, regulatory bodies. So you have to work together with others. So if you're not curious, empathetic, resilient, a problem solver, growth-minded, or collaborative, export business just becomes that much more difficult, okay? So how do we get there to the place where we can export? One of the biggest things is to have experience in business at home. Last year in a training, the facilitator said to us, stabilize your home base. Stabilize your home base. Why is that important? Your home base means, one, you have proof of concept of the idea, but two, you do have a source of income. all right? They also said, do not reduce on your local production to move to export, which means what you do at home, it needs to remain steady. It really must remain steady so that at the end of the day, what you deliver is quality. You have tested, you have proof of concept, you understand the costings, you understand market research, you understand how your banking sector works. You just understand all the modalities that go with business. Why is that important? It puts you into the frame of mind that when you cross borders, you will put in the same amount of work. But to export, you must have excess capacity. So do you have access to additional funds? Because you do not take from Peter to pay Paul. That means you don't take from your home business to do the export arm. Is there a way you can get access for that money? Why? Depending on your terms of trade, okay? If it is 120 days ex shipment or 30 days ex delivery, whichever it is, it means that there's a time lag. So if you're going to take money from your current business to do the export, you hamstring or you make your current business, you cripple it actually. That's what I was looking for. You cripple your current business. So you need to have excess funds, whether they're in hand or you have access to lines of credit, sources of credit, all that stuff to keep your business going. So you need to have excess capacity in the funds department. You also need to have excess production capacity. So if my current production capacity is 150 bags a day, and I'm going to export and I need to export 300 bags a week, I will not take from my local market to go to export market, because that means then I lose my base, which means I need to have the capacity to make more. Excess production capacity could mean we have unused shifts, we have unused machinery, we have team members, which is the next one. We have team members who are able to do more and pick up more. We are moving in a direction that allows us the capacity to produce more. In terms of excess capacity in teams, we need to be able to have people in the ecosystem who are willing to grow. Now that means they're willing to take up new projects, learn new things, become new people, and move forward. So excess capacity is even in your skill department. In your finance department, do you have somebody who understands the billing or willing to learn the billing on the export stage? You will have partners on the other side. Are they able to communicate effectively? So then you have excess capacity for growth also. So then there's always room to grow, I think, in every business. So then excess capacity is important. But the final thing I want to go back to, and I've kind of alluded to it in the collaboration context, is you need strong networks. So say I need to export a container of flowers to Nigeria. What I'm trying to curb is the fact that a lot of flowers that go to the West, we have to go up north and then back down, okay? So who am I able to aggregate for? Am I a flower producer? Does my farm have enough? So I have enough, I can fill a container every week to go. That's good. But what if I grow avocados or I grow French beans and I'm looking to export to, let's use Egypt this time, okay? So I will be given a contract for 1 container of avocados, 1 container of French beans every 10 days or every 2 weeks. Do I have capacity to fill a 40-foot container, or do I need to combine my dispatch with somebody to get it gone? So that's aggregation, whether same product aggregation to fill the container or find other business people to aggregate and share the container, which then means I need to be able to talk with people, find reliable people, connect with them, and work properly with them. Which leads to the other part of strong networks, referrals. Do I have a system that gives me access to information that gets me to where I need to go? Do I have a system that gives me access to maybe banking information, updates on what the government is doing? Do I have a strong network to be able to get additional work in the country I've exported to without too much headache? Do I have people who will stand up and say, yes, we know Kyesubire, she is efficient, she is diligent, her product is worth it? This isn't just about exporting products. When you export services, it's the same mindset. The difference may be you will do it on, you use a lot more tech. Okay, so you're going to be collaborating on platforms, you will be collaborating on product sales, activities, and all that. But your network becomes critical because that is how you hear about work, you get work. Those are the people who stand up and say, yes, we know her, she's reliable. So when you're thinking of expanding your reach as a business, you have to do it progressively. You don't wake up today and say, I made 2 million in Kenya yesterday, I can go and make an additional 5 million outside. There is a system, and in the front end, there's a lot of work you must do. You must research your market, understand what they need. You must go back and find out, will they actually buy my product? So you do a test run. There are so many things we must do, and if we don't think about it logically, that's how we struggle. Many of us have heard of businesses who try to export, and then suddenly somewhere in the middle, either their local business collapsed, struggled, or the export market collapsed. And I think many times it's because we do not understand what we need to go global. It is an additional line, because maybe in your country, your product is a certain ml size, and in the other country, they need smaller or larger or a different format. So if here in Kenya, you sell it in cans, but then there they want it in sachets and tubes, do you have the capacity to do both the cans and retain your Kenya market, and then do the sachets and tubes for the other market? They may want larger quantities than what you're able to do. Can you shift into that? Now, the reality is a lot of this is done from the research point on the front end. So if I want to go into Namibia to sell whatever it is I have to sell, just because somebody says, send me X amount of stuff, I have to go and do my research. If I'm going to be told, send me 100 kilos of honey, right? I need to ensure it gets tested. I need to know what the standards of importation on the other side are. I need to know how long it will take, what are the delivery times, what are the transportation possibilities, what freight am I using? So the reason why many of us struggle with exporting is because many of us don't do the front end thinking. But understand, you need to be experienced in business at home, you need to have excess capacity, you need to have strong networks. And then you draw on the mindset of resilience. You draw on the mindset of problem solving. You draw on curiosity and empathy. You will find that cultural differences could stop you. But if you have a community or you have a connection to somebody who can unpack that cultural difference or can stand up and speak on your behalf, that changes the conversation. So I hope this quick conversation has been useful. As always, our role is to simplify it into bite-sized pieces. So you will rarely find us doing extended, really long conversations. What we want to do is give you little pieces that you can go and digest and develop and come out on the other side. Allow me to say that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is critical to the future of Africa. We will not see the fullness in our lifetime. That I'm certain of. But what we will see and what we must each step up to do is to create the kind of environment that will enable our children's children to thrive. I'm aware that the reality is I'm unlikely to see the fullness of this in my lifetime. But my children's children, they will see it. So that means I can build with the knowledge that this is an intergenerational activity. And once I complete this, then my family will be secure and sorted. So what we need to understand as an African people is that if we don't put in the work now, our children's children will be hampered. Our children's children will be stuck. So let's come together and just have honest conversations about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Please feel free to put a comment in the chat, a question in the comment section, and we will definitely respond to it. And then why don't you just simply like this video if it was useful to you, as well as follow the channel and hit the notifications button so that every time we have a new show up, you can be a part of it. Once again, this is Kyesubire Greigg signing out from AfCFTA Files, powered by the African MSME Collective. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and I hope that this show has been useful to you. Adieu, goodbye, kwaheri. We shall see you at the next show.